This is Andrew West, and this is the screen recording of my presentation for the Q1 project. For the Q1 project, I just wanted to take a website that I and many other sports bettors use very frequently and make it easier to use and make the data that it gives you more visually appealing and just easier to interpret. This is the website. It's called killersports.com, and it's just a database of against the spread trends and information on NBA, MLB, and NFL football teams. And the way you use it is you submit queries and it returns information. So if we want, say, information on how the Golden State Warriors performed last year against the point spread, we would just enter a trend query like this, and we will get that information. As you can see, it gives you this large chart, and it's sort of hard to read, and it's even harder to interpret what information is actually there and what that information is saying. I just wanted to create a website that would display it better and give you a better idea of what the information is actually saying. So I create a website. It's called Trend-Based Handicapping, and you can research any of the 8 teams remaining in the NBA playoffs. You select the team from the drop-down menu, and you can either see what their point spread was throughout the course of last year, or you can also see how they actually performed against that point spread. What this tells you is if there are particular spots where a team is either under or overvalued. If you see that, in this area the line is consistently below 0, and yet this other line, display results, is consistently above that number when the other line is below 0, what that tells you is that the team is performing very well as an underdog, which is very useful information as a sports bettor. I believe it's just easier to look at these graphs than it is just trying to have your eyes parse through a list of numbers. So that's essentially all my website does right now. But I do plan on building out the functionality. One other thing that I'd like to do is, I found that I was entering queries for pretty much the same information time and time again, and I thought there was a way I could automate this process. I was looking for how a team performed with a particular amount of rest against a particular opponent, and whether they were at home or away. And I would like to just add a button where a user can select from this drop down and then say click that button, and it's going to return those trends in a chart, or just a manner that's easier for them to read, currently available on this website. What I used for this project is I used HTML, of course, Sass for the styling, and then jQuery for the interactivity on the website. So this is my jQuery. When the page loads, we have these variables. The variables just store the specific URL that's needed to query the SDQL API. And you query it by submitting a different URL based on the query that you're entering. So these are the ASCII codes right here, or the ASCII numbers. They just correspond to the equal sign, the plus sign that I was entering over here on SDQL.com. So when my user clicks on the button, there's an event handler that's triggered, which makes an AJAX call. And that AJAX call is dependent on whichever team my user selects, and that'll form a different query based on a different team. So it will make the AJAX call, and it will get the information using this JSON callback function. The data I need is in the form of an object, and the data I actually need is just one array within that object. So I had to create another variable that will access that specific array. Then all I'm doing here is just adding point spread to the front of that array. C3, the graphing technology I use, is all it does is it makes the x-axis the first element of the array. So by adding point spread to the front of the array, you're just making that the x-axis. This chart data variable just stores sports data as the column of the chart, or the x-axis of the chart, and then the chart.load actually pulls that information from the server. Then we call this function setup chart. This uses the actual C3 method that we need, and this is where the actual graph is created. So it takes chart data and it makes it into a line graph. It takes all those numbers which are in the column of chart data, and it makes it just puts it into a line graph. Um, and then you pass in the parameters for the line graph that you want as arguments. So we have size, we have data, um, and that essentially places our information into a nice looking line graph. Then we have another event or another click handler attached to our other button for display results right here. So it's just the same idea. The only difference is it's going to use a different variable for this part of the URL because we're wanting information on the result rather than the actual point spread of the game. So this part, this variable gets you the point spread, and then we switch it out for the second click event, and this variable gets you the actual result of the game that we're looking for. I hope you enjoyed my presentation. As I state, I am not done with this website yet, and I really look forward to building it out. Thank you very much.